have had the best week going through all of the suggestions and the comments and the emails and the text messages and the Facebook posts on all of the suggestions to help me get this YouTube journey started with Home Loan Pros. So I thank each and every one of you. I'm fighting a little bit of laryngitis today, but if I don't do it today, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. So we're just going to get started today. So thank you all for your encouragement. I love all the education videos people are sending me. And I really, really appreciate you just allowing me to be transparent and vulnerable that this isn't my thing. So with that, hi, I'm Stacy Thorne and I'm with CMG Home Loans. One of the topics I've picked today is one that I hadn't really thought about, which was, why don't you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you get into the business? How did you get into the business? What made you get into the business? And just tell a little bit about what the last 30 years have looked like for you over in the mortgage industry. So I'm going to try to do that for you today, 5 minutes or less, and hopefully we don't bore our very first video. So I actually started off in mortgage financing right here in Omaha, Nebraska. I started in 1990 by accident. I was going to school full-time. I was working for a bank full-time, and I lived in an apartment. I was having a hard time struggling at that time between working full-time and finding time to study and to take tests and all of that. So someone had suggested to me very wisely, well, why don't you go to work for a temp agency? In doing that, you do not have to worry about losing your job if you just tell them, hey, I'm not available for these days. I'm going to be studying for a test, or I'm going to be doing my homework. And I thought, what a fantastic idea. So I did. And my very first job was in the mortgage industry. I'm not going to sit here and say that I walked uphill both ways barefoot in the snow, but I kind of did. Because when I started in 1990, I was hired on as for a temp agency, because at the time, we didn't have computer systems to generate all of those forms that we require that you sign over and over and over again in the mortgage process. So that was me. The mortgage companies at that time were inundated because they were started to refinance families off of their 15, 16, 17% interest rates. At that time, it was 8.5%, 9% was like there was a waiting line for people wanting to refinance. So they hired me to type applications, and that's what I did. For me, what happened very quickly, however, is I came from a very modest, some may say poor, background. I've stood in line for government cheese. My mom was a single mom, and she provided me my work ethic. She worked 3 jobs to support my brother and I. And as a result of that, I saw what it took to work hard. So I had that value from the very, very start. But when I was introduced to the mortgage industry as a temp typing applications, I started to look around at things I had never really experienced before. Nice clothes. People would go to lunch and have cocktails, smoke cigarettes, come back. At that time, I think they could even smoke in the offices. They were wearing fancy clothes. And they were driving nice cars, but the connection that I made at that point, because I hadn't really had a lot of experience with people who were successful financially. And so as I'm looking at the fancy cars at the time, but I'm hearing the dialogue from the people, I realized that they really weren't any different than me by smarts or education, but they had something that I wanted. It was glamorous. Real estate, this side of things, can be pretty glamorous. You meet some amazing people. There's a lot of golf. There's a lot of, which I don't golf, but there's a lot of lifestyle to this industry. And so when I say to you, our business is like a lifestyle, it truly is. There's not a shut off to that. So in looking at that passion of seeing something in these successful people, it stirred a passion in me that I was going to be those people. And I remember when the company quickly recognized my passion, the manager called me into his office and he said, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" And I was honest. I said, in your chair. And I meant it. And I have since then been chasing this passion of mortgage lending, of which I'm really looking forward to sharing some really cool stories, experiences, challenges, history of what I have grown in the last 30 years. So stay tuned in, follow the page, and let's just kind of share, what does the mortgage look like over the last 33 years, and how did that affect me and my family personally?